Hey guys, it's Majiinbae, back with another video for Giant Slayer. So today we're going to be going over Nightfall again. This Nightfall though is a little different than the last one. With the nerfing of our favorite Sad Moon Boy, RIP, Nightfall had to adjust. It has to go in a more aggressive direction using Diana and Nocturne. The deck before with Aphelios and Temple would grind your opponent out with value in Aphelios guns and finish the game with invokes. This deck has to go a little lower to the ground where it caps out at about 4 mana. So Diana in the deck full of Nightfall units, obviously very, very strong unit, controls the boards, can kill champions. Killing Twisted Fate isn't as important now, but considering you can activate Nightfall every turn really easily, sometimes multiple times a turn, Diana just becomes a destroy target unit every round type champion, and that's a super strong effect. Nocturne, on the other hand, is more of a closing the game out kind of threat. It's very easy to level him up, oftentimes by turn 5 or 6, because you're playing at least one Nightfall unit almost every single round, like I mentioned before. And once he gives everything fearsome and nerfs your opponent's creatures down on their toughness, it's really difficult for your opponent to ever be able to block profitably. Getting into the followers, we have Lunari Duskbringer. Probably the best Nightfall enabler in the deck is the 1-drop Lunari Duskbringer. It's a 1-mana 2/1 that gives you a Dust Petal Dust when it is summoned. Fantastic enabler, good stats for its mana cost. The Dust lets you play any Nightfall unit at 1 cheaper than normal, which can lead to some really tricky turns where you squeeze out a Diana for 1 mana that your opponent wasn't expecting. Very solid card. I never mulligan these. Solari Soldier is another one of our 1-drops. It's a Daybreak unit, which is good because we want to cast something before we cast Nightfall, and we don't want to use our Nightfall payoffs as enablers. For example, you don't want to play Stygian Onlooker, then to play Doombeast. You would like to play something else and then Doombeast, or something else and then Stygian, or you're just wasting the effect. The Daybreak Soldier does a great job of that. Comes out as a 3/3, fantastic on offense, even better on defense usually. Just a really good card. Stygian Onlooker is a 2/1 for 1 that with Nightfall becomes a 4/1 with Fearsome, incredibly hard to block. Oftentimes I take this on Stalking Shadows to have extremely explosive turns combined with Nocturne. It's pretty simple to get 8 to 12 damage out of these guys. If you are able to pick them up off Stalking Shadows and your opponent doesn't have blockers, off 4 mana with the Stalking Shadows and the 2 birds, you can get 8 damage easy peasy. Can really close out games very fast. The next slot with the Flight is one where I saw a couple of the lists differ a little bit. I saw one that has 3 copies of the Flight and one that has 3 copies of Fading Memories. It seems to be kind of a flex slot at the current moment. I played the Fading Memories version, and every time I did, I just wanted to cast something else. Instead, I would use it inefficiently just to be a Nightfall enabler and have to end up copying something I didn't even want to copy. Whereas the Flight, also a Nightfall enabler, but just a good card. It helps you cycle through your deck. It's elusive. It gets in damage. I just like it a lot more than Fading Memories right now. The one of Evershade Stalker is just a little bit of spice. It's never a bad card to have when you go late. That in combination with Nocturne when he's leveled is kind of insane. You can just play 5 Evershade Stalkers and completely neuter your opponent's board, and then swing in with really tough to block fearsome units. Lunari Shade Stalker is a 3 of. It's good. It's elusive. Usually it's a 2/3. It's not the most impactful card in the deck. It's good. It's a nice role player. It activates Nightfall. It's fine. Play 3. 3 Mountain Goat is another like filler slot. You can't really flex it out. There's nothing else I would like to play here. It's a 3/2 for 2, great stat line, and it gives you gems, which are fantastic Nightfall enablers, plus can let you push for more damage. It's a really good card. Not like, wow, you're not like super ecstatic to play Mountain Goat in this list, but it's a very solid piece of the deck. I do not recommend cutting it. Crescent Guardian is one of your main Nightfall payoffs. A 3 mana 5/3 with Overwhelm is really difficult for your opponent to deal with, especially on curve. It's just tough to block, and even when they are getting blocked and traded with, you're still pushing through some damage. Combine that with something like Pale Cascade, and you can often just run your opponent over in combat. Doombeast is probably the most important card in the entire deck. Without him, I don't think the list would work nearly as well as it does. It gives you that reach that the deck really lacks without some sort of atrocity or anything like that, and it also keeps you healthy enough versus the more aggressive decks. If it shows up as a Stalking Shadows target, I will almost always take it, unless I have a very good reason not to. The extra 4 damage to your opponent and 4 life gain is huge and is incredibly hard to make back up. Doombeast is also my main Unto Dust target because you get another 4 life point drain every time you cast it. It's just really, really good. You use it as a finisher, you use it to close the gap. It's a great like turn 3, turn 4 play just to deal some damage and have a nice blocker or attacker. Super, super solid card. You cannot play this deck without them. And the very last of our units, we have one Cygnus the Moonstalker. 6 mana, Nightfall. Make it and one of your other units elusive. It's a great top end killer in this deck. Without Atrocity, you need some sort of reach. Atrocity, I thought about putting in, but because your units don't get to very high power, usually cap out at 5 or 6, not counting some leveled Diana shenanigans. Atrocity is just not that good. It's 6 mana and it's never really doing more than 4 damage unless you're really lucky. And at that point, you're probably already going to win the game. So we have Cygnus. Usually when I play Cygnus, I get in for 9 to 10 points of damage, 5 with itself, and then you throw it on a Nocturne or a Crescent Guardian or even a Doombeast or whatever. And it just gets in. It's that extra bit of reach that the deck really, really needs. I like playing one. You can cut it if you want. I would not recommend it though. All right, now on to the spells. 3 Pale Cascades has been kind of the standard in Targon decks already. And this is a Targon deck with Nightfall that wants to be in combat. You absolutely have to have 3 Pale Cascades. It's fantastic against removal. It cycles. It triggers Nightfall. It's really good. It's really good. Play 3. Stalking Shadows is probably the best spell in the entire deck though, considering all of the things that all your units are quite cheap and they almost all have Nightfall. It's just so good. Being able to snag a Stygian Onlooker for a bunch of extra damage in combat, or grabbing 2 copies of Doombeast for the drain and the blockers. It's just an absolute phenomenal card. It's also one of your best Nightfall enablers. Being able to cast it at burst speed with spell mana is absolutely huge because it keeps all your mana open for all your units later. Unto Dusk, we're only playing 2. I use it on mostly Doombeast and every now and then something else for a little bit of extra damage. I originally thought, oh, that's weird. This should be a slam dunk 3 of. The card's really, really good. But you spend so much of your mana on your units, and it's only really that good with Doombeast that I definitely like shaving one. I use it more as a Nightfall enabler than a Nightfall payoff, which isn't how you're supposed to use the card, but that's just kind of how the cookie crumbles. It's like Stalking Shadows 4 through 5 is what it feels like for me. And every now and then I get to get lucky and use it on Doombeast. All right, so like I said, this deck does have a much more aggressive slant than the Aphelios one that we're used to seeing. So that changes its matchups a lot. It's kind of a dog to the more aggressive decks. You're just a little behind. They come out the gate a little faster. Things such as spiders or discard aggro. They're just a little faster than you, and you don't actually play any removal outside of killing things in combat with like Diana. So while aggro can be really tough, I find that mid-range matchups are quite good for you. You go under a lot of things, and the power of a flipped Nocturne plus a bunch of Nightfall enablers can just close out games from absolutely nowhere. On the flip side, decks with a lot of removal can be really tough for you. You usually have to grind through them using things like Stalking Shadows, so I will keep those in my opener, and just kind of flood them with cards and get damage through when you can, finishing them off with Doombeast. You're pretty good into all the removal heavy decks that don't have life gain, such as Draven Ezreal. You have good statted creatures, and eventually you can just Doombeast them out. But you're kind of a dog to the decks like Thresh Nasus, I feel, that have removal, life gain, and a really hard to stop threat. Some quick advice as far as mulligans are concerned. I always keep Lunari Dustbringer in my opening hand. I do keep Nocturne if I think that we're going to get to that point where a leveled Nocturne will be necessary for me to win the game in very board-centric matchups without a lot of removal, such as Demacia decks. I try not to keep Stygian Onlooker in the hands as a 1-drop because I don't want to play it on turn 1. It's a Nightfall payoff too, so if my hand is something like Lunari Shadestalker and Stygian Onlooker, I will mulligan one if not both of those cards because I can't play them both on turn 3 profitably. If I had something like Lunari Dustbringer in my hand as well, then it's a different story. But make sure you're mulliganing for your Nightfall payoffs and your Nightfall enablers that you can use at the same time. You don't want to keep all Nightfall payoffs and have no enablers and really stunt your curve. Try not to play this deck as aggressively as you think you should. It's not a combo deck, but it does have combo-ish feeling finishes with things like Nocturne and Cygnus. The deck does have a fair bit of reach with all the Doombeast. Don't be afraid to play it a little slower than you think, going balls to the wall and throwing... Can I say that on this? I'll take that out. Going completely all in with all your units and losing all board pressure is a good way to lose the game. Try to take a more measured approach with good trades and outvalue your opponent a little bit, and then finish them off with something like triggering multiple Doom Beasts, Cygnus, or flipping Nocturne. If you'd really like to go more in on the Doom Beast burn plan, you can always cut all of the flights and add fading memories and find space for the third Unto Dusk, maybe by cutting Cygnus or a goat or something. This will give you a much more combo feeling where sometimes you activate 5 or 6 Doom Beasts in a game. I do think that version is a little less consistent though, so it's up to you whether or not you'd like to make that switch. While you could theoretically switch something like Diana out for Elise, I really wouldn't recommend it. Diana and Nocturne are the best cards in the deck, and I don't think you can cut them favorably for any other champion at the moment. Again, I think this deck is super strong at the moment. It is a little bit more difficult to play than you would think with its low to the ground curve. It's a little more complicated than just playing things and attacking, and it took me quite a few games to figure out proper sequencing. However, I think once you put the time in with the deck, it's an incredibly strong contender for one of the best ladder decks in the meta at the moment. Alright guys, that's it for this video. Make sure to like and subscribe. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. I'll see you next time.